Hey, welcome to week 2, Command plus C. We are investigating how to imitate or copy the love of Christ, and I'm just going to jump right into this because I got a shortened time frame as always. But I need you to go with me to Luke chapter 10. And Luke chapter 10, we're going to cover this story about a really familiar story about Mary and Martha. You're all familiar with the story, I'm sure. As soon as I read through this, you'll be like, oh yeah, I get this. But I just want to start right there today. It says in Luke chapter 10, verse number 38, it says, as they continued to travel, this is Jesus and his entourage, Jesus entered a village. A woman by the name of Martha welcomed him. She made him feel quite at home. She had a sister, Mary, who sat before the master, hanging on every word he said. But Martha was pulled away by all that she thought that she had to do. Do you see that written in there, or just me? All that she had to do in the kitchen. Later she stepped in, interrupting them. Master, don't you care that my sister has abandoned the kitchen to me? Tell her to lend me a hand. The master said, Martha, dear, sweet Martha, you're fussing too much. Can you look at the person next to you and be like, stop fussing? Stop fussing. Come on, tell them. Stop fussing. Thank you, Katrina. You're fussing too much. You're getting yourself worked up over nothing. Only one thing is essential, and Mary has chosen it. It's the main course, and it won't be taken away from her. I'll be honest with you, as I studied this message, as I studied this passage, knowing the concept of what I told you about last week, that we are kind of a group of gun-carrying, farming people who just like to go out and kill stuff, right? And so I look at this story, and I'm like, it doesn't fit. How am I supposed to relate a story about 2 women to a bunch of guys and talk about love? Can you sympathize with my struggle here, Rich? I'll do my best. I look at this story and I look at this concept and I see this tension, this struggle. I mean, Jesus essentially equates, a contrast between best choices. I mean, he says that in the last thing. Only one thing is essential. In other words, there's 2 options here on the table here. She chose one, and Mary chose another, and she chose what was best. Do you see that here too? Do you see that? And so now the contrast becomes what Martha is doing in this story, does it not matter? Is it not significant? Is it not of anything? And I don't know that there's an answer to that, but I do want you to just kind of wrap your mind around that idea of just stop fussing. I can't tell you how many times I've told my kids that today. Do you know what I mean? Good Lord, I think we use this phrase with each of our children collectively all the time. It's probably the phrase I use most in my house. Stop fussing! Because they're constantly whining and bickering and complaining about something else, and I just I can't take this anymore. Do you know how quiet our house would be if there was no more fussing? It would be so peaceful. My crew is watching online right now, so I'm sure that they're tense about that. Listen, what started out right here, if you can get the sense of this story, put yourself in that little living room that day as you walk in there and kind of see the walls and smell the smells as this woman, Martha, is cooking up a storm because Jesus and his entourage walked into the place. Can you kind of sense and feel the tension and irritation that she begins to build and let everybody else know that she is feeling in that moment? Can you feel it? Can you see it? Can you hear it? Listen, my son Grayson, who is probably playing Xbox this morning, he is like a jabberer behind your back, okay? You can look at Grayson and say it does not matter what you say. He will turn around, walk away, peacefully stomp his feet, if you can do that, and then just start complaining as soon as he thinks that you can't hear him any longer. He is so we call it the grumble Grayson. He's just so grumbly. It's just so hilarious. And yet if he would just come to us and be like, this is what I feel, and this is what I think, and just start using his words, it would be so different. But I get the sense in this story that this is what Martha's doing. She's just behind the scenes, just out of earshot, in some other room, making up a ruckus to get you to understand that she is irritated right now, right? Can you see this? Can you sense it? I think that, as I look through this, there's actually several stories about Martha and Mary in it, and another story you can see the same thing happening. Martha is actually attributing her love language. Her love language is hospitality. Her love language is quality time and acts of service. She wants to serve people. And this is where she just thrives. The problem is that she misunderstands and misinterprets the fact that why is nobody else like talking my language here? You know what I mean? I love to serve people. Why doesn't everybody else love to serve people too? You know what I mean? To her, the best thing to happen was that they would all collectively stand up, join her in the kitchen, and cook their chicken nuggets together. You know what I'm saying? Like if we could just all do this together, it would be awesome. Because then, many hands make light work. We could all sit down together, and I want to be sitting at the feet of Jesus too, so I can hear what Jesus has to say. This would be sweet. But clearly that doesn't happen, right? I thought about so you get this contrast. The other side of the contrast is Mary sitting at Jesus' feet, hanging on his every word. And listen, I got to be honest with you. I scoured every resource I could find to figure out the history and past of who Mary was. The problem is that there's too many Marys in the Bible. You can't figure out there's really no description written of this one. We can't figure out who this one was, Mary of Bethany. I don't know her past. I don't know her story. I just know this is that she was just desperate to hear the words of Jesus. This was just the most important thing. Nothing else mattered in this moment as long as I can just be and hang on Jesus' words. This is fueling me. It's just pouring into my soul. I remember, let me just tell you, one of the first times I feel like I get in trouble every time I talk about Mexico now. I'm sorry, I just feel it. Every time, listen, one of the first times I ever went to Mexico was on a trip with my youth pastor, Keenan. We had gone down to do a survey trip. We were going to bring a bulk of our youth group later on that summer. And so we wanted to make sure that everything was kosher. We knew where we were going to go. We knew where we were going to stay and what we were going to try to experience. We wanted to really just pour in some effort and intentionality behind this trip so that we could just make the most of every opportunity and make sure that nobody was going to die, okay? So we wanted to sleep where they were going to sleep. We wanted to do and drive and whatever. So the first place we went was Monterrey, Mexico. Monterrey is about, 3-4 hours south of Laredo, Texas, and super, super hot. I mean, it is everything you imagine Mexico is, that's what it is. All the culture and all the heat poured on at the same time. So hot. We went in around this time of the year, February, March. It was still hot. But I remember this was one of those moments where I didn't understand Mexican culture. I didn't understand the Spanish language. I understood nothing. And so we were there over a Sunday, and so we went to one of their churches. And I remember sitting in this little tiny building that was super, super uncomfortable. Wooden pew type things, right? And listen, I know the gospel truth that says that the heart can only take what the butt can endure. You know what I'm saying? And I was not tolerating this anymore. I was done. And let me just help you understand that a church service in Mexico is an experience in and of itself. And so if it lasts all day, it lasts all day. It's no big deal. We're going to have food regardless. Everything happens around tacos, so amen. But I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't understand what they were saying. It's blazing hot and hard pew, okay? Y'all get my feeling here. And so I was a little disinterested in this moment. I remember this moment where my youth pastor looks over at me and he's like, pay attention. I'm like, pay attention to what? I can't do this anymore, right? And so I fabricated something. I mean, this is way before iPhone era. I couldn't play Angry Birds. I had nothing to do. It was just torture. I look at this experience with Mary and Martha, and I look at these 12 disciples, and I'm like, I bet they felt the same thing. I'm like, they're sitting in this little tiny packed living room with somebody cooking chicken nuggets over here, and they have just lost their minds. There's no place to sit. And let's face it, we've heard these stories before. This is predictable. One thing sitting at Jesus' feet is Mary, and they're just she's just captivated by what is pouring out of Jesus' mouth. And these guys are taking it for granted. They're like, when are we going to get out of here? This is so boring. I hope lunch is good. I mean, this small-minded mentality, this thinking of, I can't do this any longer. I need to get up and move. Let's be on to the next place. And yet Jesus right here is like in the prime of his life. This is it. This is everything that he lives. This is his purpose. This is his heart. This is his passion. We have our staff uses a communication tool that we call Slack. And on Slack, you have different tabs of different conversations with different people. And one of the tabs that we have on Slack is a Celebrate tab. And almost every Sunday, we fill our Celebrate tab with what we saw God do in this church and the stories that we hear and the text messages that we receive and the life-changing things that happen. And without question, almost every Sunday, somebody says, how do we get to do this every week? Like, how is it possible that we see the Lord show up in our little house every Sunday? And life change happens every Sunday. And my response or my thought is that, good Lord, that it never becomes expectable. That it always stays that fresh. That it always stays that relevant. Otherwise, we're the ones sitting in that living room being like, when are we going to go do something more fun than this? When are we going to see something more interesting? When are we going to see something more profound? When are we going to see Jesus cure somebody else? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is amazing. It's majestic. The Lord is here. The Lord is at work. And they lost that sense. I just have to believe that they were just like, oh, this is so boring. You know, it's not recorded that they said anything, that they responded in any way. And we can't expect that the authors of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we're going to record every word. But it also leads me to believe that they didn't say anything significant either. You know what I mean? They didn't come up with anything profound, or they didn't say anything distinctive to be able to respond to what Jesus was moving and teaching in that moment. Let me just help you understand. Let's just go back to Martha's love language for just a minute. She's here, she's serving, she's doing her thing, she loves doing, but she doesn't want to be doing it alone. She's like, help me, let's get this done. And let's face it, from a man's perspective, dinner is dinner, whether it's Thanksgiving or chicken nuggets, it doesn't matter. The goal is the same. I just need to be filled. Am I right? Can I get one more amen? Like, to speak this truth, we need to understand this. The goal is just full, right? Okay. Like, I get Thanksgiving too, but Martha had created her own expectation of an atmosphere. She wanted to wow Jesus with her effort. She really wanted Jesus to just be head over heels with Martha's serving attitude. And this is amazing, Martha. How did you think of all this? Have you ever wanted Jesus to be impressed with your effort? Only to be disappointed? Listen, I don't know about you, but when I was in college, I was way overachiever. I love margin in my life. I like space. I don't like to be surprised. I like to work way, way ahead on things. In fact, this week I started working on my summer series just because I like to have space. I like to know what to expect and what to predict and how we're going to cause this to go and flow and all that stuff. And so I remember one time I had to do a report in one of my doctrinal classes, and I turned in a project 3 weeks before it was due. Stupid. Don't ever do that. Listen, I was furious because when I got my paper back, when everybody else got their papers back, I got a C. Now, a friend of mine came from the same church I did, lived down the hall from me, turned his project in a week late, and got an A. And I'm like, what is this? And I will never, ever turn in a project early again. I mean, we get this overachiever, be impressed with me mentality, only for it to bite you in the back end when you're finished. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Martha would have just understood the concept of, like, let's just be about what is the most important thing for us to be about in this moment. He's right here. This may be the only moment that we get with Jesus, and she's taking it for granted. She's misunderstanding or misinterpreting the fact that this is it. This is all we get. I love the fact that in this message, we kind of wrap this together. She begins to use the Lord as her weapon. I mean, this is this moment where it's just, she's banging so loud. It's just, everything she can do to help people understand, I'm mad right now. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like the fact that you're just sitting there waiting for me to serve you, when in all actuality, that was her passion, service, right? And she uses the Lord as her weapon, and she says this. She says, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while all I do is work. I mean, she pulls up Jesus as the baseball bat, and she's like, didn't go very well. She's more pressurized than a pressure cooker, and she is going to blow up. Listen, she clearly she needs to understand it's not food that creates the atmosphere, it's the person that's part of it. And you know what? I think you and I need to probably understand that same concept. Not about food, but about the person. You know, when we, I'm curious, like I even wrote in my notes right here, like what are you hearing me say right now? Are you hearing me say don't cook dinner? Are you hearing me say like, hey listen, chicken nuggets for the rest of your life? No, maybe. Chick-fil-A. I remember like Lawrence, when we sat down and had this planning meeting over this series, talking specifically about this message, Lawrence even said this. He said, don't prescribe devotional time. And so I just kind of want to do the exact opposite of that. Like, you know what, just throw devotions out the window. Get rid of them. I even told Amanda this morning, she was telling me, like, I learned this in my devotions. I was like, oh, I'm going to tell people not to do devotions anymore today. And you're like, what are you doing with that? I think you should stop the idea of just check mark and just be more devoted. Good Lord, that's profound. Stop, like, misrepresenting the expectation of, hey, I spent time with Jesus today. This is all you get. Make this a lifestyle. Make this every bit and every portion and every facet of your life. You want to see life change happen on an exponential level? Be devoted with your whole life. With all of it. Instead of just one experience. That's what Martha's trying to turn one experience into the best experience of his life. It didn't have anything to do with her. She just wanted to impress Jesus for one time. She wanted him to wear a mark and think back on the fact that, oh man, when we spent time with Martha, it was amazing. We ate the most glamorous, luxurious chicken nuggets you've ever had. That's all it was. Just be devoted. It's not about a single experience. It's about a relationship. And to me, this draws me all the way back to, I believe it's Matthew 11, where Jesus himself said, listen, come to me. Come to me, all of you who are broken, who are weary. And what did he say? He said, I will give you what? Rest. Isn't that what we're all after on some level? I mean, good Lord, I hear people talk to me all the time about their pain, about their overwhelming anxiety. I pray more prayers about anxiety than just about anything else because people are overwhelmed. They're defeated. They're trying so hard. And yet Jesus is like, hey, come to me. Get away with me. I will give you rest. I will take away the discomfort, the overwhelming tensions that you face in your life. Have you ever felt tension that just builds like right between your shoulder blades? It just, you can feel it. You carry it with you. It's awful, isn't it? How do you get rid of this? I walked in church this morning like that. I don't know why. But that's his plea for you. Come to me. Would you just come with me? Come with me and let me just take this from you. I believe that's what the cry, the prayer and passion of Jesus would be for you today. Just come to me. Let me carry it with you. Let me carry it for you. Just listen to my words. I'll take care of everything else. Come to me. I wonder, like, who of you need to just come? Who of you just need to be like, man, that's my story. That's my life. I just need to rest. I just need to rest in who he is. I'm trying hard to be impressive. I'm trying hard to be impressive with what I can fix and what I can handle. What would it look like for you to just come? What would it look like for you to just respond and say, God, I just give up. I just quit. I'm just going to let you do you. I'm just going to stop trying. I quit. I want you to just make that your mission and your motive. Do that. Whatever it looks like. Here I am, God. I'm just coming. Why don't you just take a moment right now with your heads bowed and your eyes closed? Just you come before God personally on your own. Just tell him that, God, I quit. I'm going to quit trying. I'm going to quit trying to be impressive. I'm going to quit trying to fix, to solve. You've got some tensions about your future. You've got some uncertainties about what's coming next. Just come. Come and get away with him. Let him give you rest. Lord, I just pray right now for this church. God, as we kind of conceptualize and lean into, Lord, where you want to provide rest, Lord, I know that there are so many examples inside of our church today of people who are just tense and afraid of what could happen. And Lord, we're just trying to impress you with our margin, with our forethought, with our preparation, thinking that maybe we can just get away from it, maybe we can, divert into a different direction and we'll be safe. Lord, I just pray that you would just give this church rest. Lord, I believe that you have plans. You have plans in place for all of us and each of us. And I think that we probably wear a lot of each other out by trying to avoid the plan. We see it. Some of your plans, God, are painful. They're exhausting. They're overwhelming. And we want out of it, not realizing that it is your plan. And God, I just thank you for the reality that you said that you would walk through each of those with us, God. And so, Lord, be with our church right now. Lord, those in this house, those that are online, those that can't be at either one, Lord, I just pray that you would just give us an overwhelming sense of peace and your rest, God.